Hello guys, this is callisto8413. I'm going to do a review of the Time Machine. Before I start, I'd like to correct something I said in the War of the Worlds review. Um, Edison's Conquest of Mars is not the official sequel to War of the Worlds. It's one of the first sequels to War of the Worlds. They pretty much started right after War of the Worlds started. They were obviously trying to cash in. That does help get me into the Time Machine. The Time Machine does have an official sequel to it. Stephen Baxter actually wrote the Time Ships, and he would take a lot of the elements of this book to write other books, actually, time travel and evolution and man's place in the universe and the future and all that. But there's also another comparison to War of the Worlds I can make. War of the Worlds was made at a time when there's actually a lot of invasion stories going on in England, but it's mostly about other nations invading England, of course. They were worried quite a bit about making sure that the Navy and the Army was prepared to defend England, especially the Navy. The Channel is a nice, natural defense, but sooner or later somebody's going to cross it. The War of the Worlds, though, was an alien invasion story, which is completely different. You really can't prepare for an alien invasion, especially when they got heat rays and tripods. So it's pretty unique. The Time Machine, my little version of it, which is falling apart, only 60 cents when it was first made, is kind of actually one of a crowd. There's a lot of time travel stories going on, most of them being used as a way to get to a utopia. A lot of social engineering going on. A lot of people say, hey, we could do this, we could do that, and one way to explain it and show it is to go to the future where obviously mankind's evolved more spiritually and mentally, or go to parallel universes. The Time Machine isn't about utopia. And those other stories are getting there by hypnosis, by sleeping, by getting hit in the head and going there and coming back, or having in a dream, actually. Uh, this is actually science fiction. He's using a machine to go there and come back and explain what's going on. And it isn't that H.G. Wells didn't write utopias. I I have a feeling that one, there's so many utopias going on that one thing he didn't want to write was another novel about utopias, and two, there's might been of influence. There's so many utopias going on at that time. Looking backwards, the future, the Republic of the Future, which is actually a parody of a socialist utopia. One book that was actually published 10 years before The Time Machine, 1885, is when this was published after London. Civilization collapsed. They only try to explain how. It feels like more of a whimper than a bang. Middle Ages, wilderness, castles, forest. Mankind's actually slipping backwards. It's not evolution. It's more of a just history and technology is going along the wrong way, like we'd like to think about the wrong way. So that might have influenced this a little bit, though this is thousands of years in the future, and mankind is split into two forms: the Morlocks, which I actually find more interesting, and the I'm probably going to butcher this, the Elos. I think that's how they pronounced it. Uh, the Morlocks are more interesting because they obviously are more intelligent. They're not just magpies grabbing his machine. They actually know he's going to come and get it. They're trapping him. They have empathy. They can get into his head. They're intelligent. The other guys, well, they're blonde, short. They're not very intelligent. They're not very proactive. They're not very aggressive. They are really cattle, and the book kind of makes that quite clear. I mean, they're golden. They're just people, happy little people. Maybe that is a utopia, but not anyone I want to join. Now, there are other sequels besides the Time Ships. Let me get a few of them. The influence of Time Machine and the ideas behind it, though, are massive. Besides the movies, there's other books. You could probably go into a bookstore and just find a whole list of books dealing with Time Machine, movies, the Time Tunnel series, uh, Doctor Who. I could get this without too much reflection. Dialects, ooh, Darvis, Tom Baker. Um, Here's another sequel, Morlock Night. He time traveler's going back, as you know, at the end of the story. He's going back to try to help rebuild civilization. The problem is the smart ones are the Morlocks, and they get the time machine, come back, and being technologically curious, proactive, intelligent, aggressive, they become a danger to mankind because they're actually there quite earlier than they're supposed to be. It would have been a good book, except it starts adding things like King Arthur and Merlin. So that's not really going to cut it there. That's interesting, but it goes from science fiction to science fantasy, and the Time Machine is pretty close to out already. Throwing in those elements just might, from my point of view, it really kind of ruined it. I don't want to give any spoilers. You might like it. There's actually a few books I'm going to talk about now um, that you might like. There's another book here. Okay, Machine Chronicles, Time Machine Chronicles. This is a very good book. It looks thick. It's about 400 and something pages. It is actually, it took me only 2 days to read it. This gentleman, right here, basically read The Time Machine I don't know how many times. He also studied the style of writing. He studied Victorian style writing and the history, and he basically wove the story into the original story. So a lot of the events are happening in between events there, even though this is a sequel, because what happens, the time traveler is curious about how this happened. How did these people come to? What disasters happen? And he kind of slows down the machine and stops in between Victorian era and the time of the Morlocks and the Elos. Elos. I can't. Don't. I don't really know how to pronounce that very well, so I don't know why I keep on screwing that up. But it, you know, Elos, Elus, Elos, whatever. It's very fascinating. It's probably the best sequel I've read. There's another sequel called Beyond the Time Machine. It's about as thick. The problem is that the author likes to invent his own world to the point where he rebuilds everything. The time traveler in his book, Beyond the Time Machine, has actually settled in the around the 33rd century and has a family and all that. And what happens is that we get this world building. All of it. You know, people usually, when they write, make a world, and they use it as a setting. Like Bob Ross, when he paints a painting, the mountains in the background. This one, you know, a world setting should be like an iceberg. You see a part of it supporting the story, and the rest of it's down there in case you need it. This has the iceberg in the room with the characters, and they're good characters. The plot's good, but it really does get wordy, really wordy. And also, the gentleman invented, once again, Beyond the Time Machine, invented his own science and terminology for space travel. And also, unfortunately, the language of the future has also changed. So it gets into what Star Trek people would call technobabble. And that's why I'm not even bothering to show you right now what the book looks like. And I'm not telling you the author because I really don't, well, you know the title, but I really don't want you to waste your time on that. I'm still trying to read it, and it's taken me months. And I'm on the last few pages, and I really don't want to read it anymore because I'm actually tired of it. That's more of an emotional response than an actually logical reason not to read it, but yeah, that's how some people respond to books or movies. There's another book, if you're really, really interested in Time Machine. This is articles and essays on it, and the best part about it is some of them are sci-fi authors. I can put the authors. Let's see if I can get anything to focus there for you guys so you can see the authors. No, maybe, or whatever. They talk about books that influenced it, like Looking Backwards and other utopia time traveling novels, and books, the time travel the time machine actually influenced. So basically, what you have here is not only a breakdown of the book, but if you're interested in the time machine and the books it influenced, the science fiction it influenced, because this book actually says that without the time machine there'd be no science fiction as we know it right now. There's a nice list of books in here and authors that you can look up. You probably already know most of them if you're into sci-fi at all, but it's very good to end with. And that's where I'm going to end right now. Next review, I think I'm going to try to do Dracula. Yeah, that's going to be a hard one because I think that's influenced a huge amount of stuff from movies, novels, role-playing games, the internet. So until then, have a good day.